Hey guys, in this lesson we're going to focus on the left hand for slow blues piano, and in particular I'm going to show you some useful drills and exercises to become comfortable with left hand 10th intervals. So here's a quick performance and then we'll jump into the theory. So there, my left hand is playing 10th interval. So what is a 10th interval? Well, as the name suggests, a 10th interval is the distance of 10 notes or 10 scale degrees. So if we take the C major scale, C is our root note, we count up the scale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that gives us the 10th interval. So in this register or this range of the piano, the 10th interval sounds a little unusual, but if we move that down to this register, we then create a very nice foundation over which our right hand can play. So these two intervals or these two notes need to be played with our left hand. Now, I have pretty average sized hands, and from working with many students over the years, these are the tips and the advice that I give to students who are new to playing 10th intervals. So firstly, we're playing a blues in the key of C here. So that means our 1 chord, our 4 chord, and our 5 chord are all white keys in the sense that the root and the third are both white keys. So the first thing that I recommend to do here is play the root note of the C chord with your left hand pinky, and then slide your pinky down so it's very much the tip of your pinky that's resting on the piano, and then reach up and play the 10th interval. So if you're having trouble to visualize the 10th, just play the C triad in this range. So root, 3 and 5, and then the 3 is actually the 10th interval, but an octave higher. So there's the third here, and the third an octave higher would give you the 10th interval. So one thing you'll notice is that my left hand is hanging right off the piano. So if I try to play this with my hand on the piano, you'll notice that it's not physically possible. And so a nice exercise to get used to this hand position is to play the note with your pinky, then slide your finger down, and then bring your hand up. So notice the majority of my hand is actually hanging off the piano here. So play the bottom note, and then reach up and get the top note. And notice that both my thumb and my pinky, it's very much just the tip of the finger and the thumb that's touching here. So this can feel quite unusual to start with, but with practice, I guarantee that this hand position and this stretch will become much more comfortable. So let's repeat the same thing for the F chord. We play the root notes with our pinky, slide our pinky down, and then reach up to play the third. Again, if I try to play that on the piano, you see it's not possible. I need to have my pinky finger really hanging off the edge, so it's just maybe half a centimeter or so which is touching the keyboard. Finally, we can do it for the G chord, the 5 chord, so play the root, slide down, and then reach up to the 10th interval. So that's the 10th for the 3 chords in the blues, the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord. So once you practice this a little, you can try to get these notes simultaneously. And again, the trick here is the hand position. So it's just being comfortable playing the note with the very tip of the finger and the thumb. And staggering the notes to start with is a very good way to get used to this position. So one thing you'll find is that the muscles in the arm and the hand, they can get quite sore. So that's if you haven't played this before. But with practice, you will build up the muscle strength and also the muscle memory to know where those intervals are. So you can see that I can play without looking because my fingers and my hands are now used to that stretch. So we have this basic, what I'll call a pure 10th interval, but we can also add notes in between. So the first thing I want to show you is just to play the triad. So if we take a look at a C triad here, root, 3 and 5, what we're effectively doing is putting the 3 an octave higher. And again, this sounds much better in the lower registers. Now this works really nicely because the triad is the most simple, is the most basic building block for harmony. And so this creates a very strong foundation in the sense that it plays really the foundation of the harmony, and then the right hand can play embellishments. And we'll look at that a little bit later in the lesson. So now what I want you to do is play the triad and also put the fifth in between. So again, you can stagger these notes. So root 5, 3 for the F chord, root 5, 3, and for the G chord, root 5, 3. And then try to hit them cleanly, so all at the same time. So we can also add the seventh of the chord. Now if we do this for the C chord, it sounds a little muddy in this register, and that's because this seventh interval, when that's played low down on the piano, it can sound a little distorted. But if we play it for the F chord, it sounds much better. And also for the G chord. So C triad, I would usually omit that, and I would choose to play root 5 and 3 here. For the F chord, this sounds really good, and the G chord. So now we're playing F7 and G7, and here just a C triad. So with some right hand. So now you can see how this is fitting together. A final variation would be to also play the fifth. So here's an F7 chord. What I'm effectively playing now is an F7, but I'm just rearranging the notes or voicing the notes slightly differently. So notice now I play root 5, 7, and 3. Out of all the ones that I've showed you, this one is the hardest because now we also have quite a big stretch between our pinky finger and our third finger. But the same technique applies. You know, my hand is hanging off the piano. And so this will take some practice. You know, don't expect this to happen overnight. We have to be patient and also diligent with these drills. A nice drill to practice this is to play up the C major scale. So firstly, you can just play the 10th interval. So C10, D10. It would be C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor. That would be like a B half diminished or B diminished, and then to C. So then we can add the fifth as well. Also for that E chord, we can play with a C here. I'll show you that shortly. Then an F to a G, to A minor, B diminished, and then to C. So remember to start by staggering the notes. And then once you practice that, it will gradually improve your ability to stretch the interval, and then you can try to hit the notes simultaneously. But again, just to reiterate, if you take a look at my left hand pinky, it's very much the tip of the finger. So if you don't have that technique down, you're going to find playing 10th intervals in the left hand very difficult. So let's finish just by applying this to the first 4 bars of the blues. So what I'm going to do is start with a C7 chord. So that can be a nice entry point. Here I'm thinking of just a C pentatonic scale. And I'm adding this passing tone here. That can be a nice place to enter. Another thing, we could target the 9. And both times I'm playing that 10th interval in the left hand. So here we have a C7 chord. The only notes I'm playing are the C7th, but I'm also adding a grace note off that minor third, so it sounds like this. If we target the 9th, this gives us like a C9 voicing. And I'm grace noting from a half step below the 9. So that can be nice. Let's start with this one. So here I'm doing a suspended triad fill, as I like to call it. If you'd like to learn more about this, I did cover a beginner-focused tutorial on the slow blues in F, where we cover this motion. And if you click on the top corner of the screen, you can find a link to that tutorial. So let's add a passing chord down to the F here. So I have a C7, and then a G flat 13. So interestingly, this could be played with a 10th, and it would mean that we could add more things in the right hand, but this one is a little trickier. And that's a really good point actually, because the 10ths I showed you already, they're all white key 10ths, i.e. the root and the third are both white notes. Whereas if we play, here is a G flat 7, it's a little easier with the 5th there. If we put the 7th here, so what I'm playing is effectively a G flat 7 chord, dominant 7, root, dominant 7, and the 3. And one thing you'll notice, this is a little stretch, it's quite a stretch for me. So you'll notice that I'm hitting this note. But one of the cool things with the slow blues style is that it's meant to sound, a little rough and a little gritty. And so if you do hit, if you do smudge some notes here and there, in fact, it can add to the vibe of the performance. So what we can do is play that 10th interval, or in this case, because this is a bit tricky for me, another option would be to play this kind of voicing. So root 7, 3, 13, and 9. And that voice leads very nicely down to an F9 chord. And another important point, guys, is there's always different options. So, we don't have to play 10ths, it does help. I am confident that most people will be able to get these white key 10ths. So at least you can play them for the primary chords in the blues, the 1, 4, and 5. If you can also reach them for these passing chords, so here a dominant chord a half step above the 4, that's a bonus, but it's not essential. As I showed you, there's many other voicing options that we can play. So let's look at that. So this is a more advanced application of 10th intervals. So here I'm doing a walk up from the 1 chord to the 4 chord. So from the top again, we have the C7, passing chord into the 4 chord. I run that arpeggio up. Another 10th interval here. So notice that's the same that I played here, but an octave higher. My left hand now comes up and I play a shell, so root and 7. So my left hand is effectively, operating in 2 different octaves or 2 registers of the piano. A nice passing chord, a G7 chord with a sharp 5. And then this sounds like I'm playing a lot of notes, but the funny thing is I'm only playing root, 3, and 5 of C major. But when we play in this configuration, it gives us that big, powerful sound that sounds so wonderful with the slow blues piano. So now we're going to walk up. So we're going to play the C triad, and I'm going to move to a D. So notice my right hand first. I play C, D, and then I go to C major triad, D minor 7 if I include this note on top, which I'm keeping throughout. Then up to an E flat diminished 7, and then I go to a C over E. So basically that's just a C triad, but with an E in the bass. We'll talk about this in a separate lesson, but what that does is a very nice passing chord, which takes us beautifully into F7, F9, or however you want to voice that. So that's our right hand. And our left hand is going to walk that in 10th. So we're going to play C, 10th, D minor 10th. Here's an E flat diminished 10th. That one's actually quite nice to finger, so the notes fall nicely in the hand. And then up to a C over E. So the left hand chords played slowly. And then to the F. So I'd recommend to practice that in isolation. Again, we can start with the techniques I've showed you. So roll the notes first, and then look at adding notes in between. So the 5th, here the 7th, and that's C over E. I'm just playing a C triad, but I'm playing it with an E in the bass, and then I go up to the full 7th chord for the F7. So with the right hand and left hand played together. So I hope that's been a nice introduction to 10th intervals. We do have dedicated courses on slow blues piano, and you can find these over at pianogroove.com. This is just a short lesson, but we have many hours of step-by-step tutorials that walk you through each of these principles and each of these techniques and show you how to add them all together in context of a beautiful slow blues performance. So I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial. I'll finish with a quick demonstration for you guys, and I'll see you next time.